Current film and television has become flooded with adaptations and modern retellings of classic stories and adventures, some to great success and others to the detriment of fans everywhere. Adaptations are a hard line to walk, writers having to find a way to bring the story to life in a unique and new form, all while keeping true to and respecting the heart of the original source material. With die-hard fans around the globe, all with their own high expectations and the long-standing live-action anime curse, Netflix's One Piece seemed doomed from the start. Much like the lovable Straw Hats, this live-action adaptation surpasses expectations and truly shows how to excel in adaptation. When I did my teaser video a few months back, I mentioned how One Piece's East Blue Saga was a steep hurdle to overcome for modern audiences looking to get into the One Piece series. I myself initially quit the series after Orange Town, and only came back a year later when I was out of things to play in the background while learning to draw and animate. Ultimately, Netflix delivers on a compact and compelling story that sticks true to the original adventure, all while cutting the fluff and giving new fans looking for their end to the series a more digestible entry point. There are a few changes and cuts that may cause confusion for those looking to continue the anime where the live action closes, but it's overall a strong substitute for those that struggled through the series' weakest saga. These major changes being the inclusion of Garp at this point in the story and the expansion of Koby's role in the East Blue Saga, and the exclusion of the fishman Hachi from the Arlong Pirates, who returns later to play a major role at the halfway point of the One Piece storyline. This retelling of the East Blue mainly adds to the characterization and stakes of the saga. Arlong's early introduction truly makes him feel like a threat and paints him as top dog of the East Blue, adding Garp's overarching pursuit of Luffy and crew, and the season truly feels like it's been building to something the original telling of East Blue lacked that was corrected for all later sagas. By the time Luffy leaves Arlong Park to head for the Grand Line, there's an actual resolution that's occurred for this leg of the story. Arlong has been defeated, as happens in the manga, and Garp has accepted Luffy's decision to be a pirate. At least to some degree, he is a marine, so they'll still be enemies. When the credits roll at the end of the 8th episode, there's a feeling of accomplishment, something I personally didn't feel we got for the first time in the manga until Luffy's defeat of Crocodile at the end of the Alabasta saga. The series could end here, but we do get a glimpse of what's to come should a second season be greenlit. Netflix does a great job of ensuring the same heart remains for each character that was there from the manga years before. Luffy is still the same happy-go-lucky kid with big dreams that will be the
king of the pirates.
He's got a tendency to be a bit aloof.
I think they're after the other thief, an idiot pirate trying to steal a map. What are the odds of that?
A desire to help people in need.
Put him down.
But why? He's having such a great time.
And above all, protects his friends at all costs.
Because no one messes with my friends.
And he also just loves to eat. Zoro is our booze-obsessed master swordsman that loves to sleep.
Need to knock it off, I'm trying to take a nap.
And has a promise to keep.
I, Roanoke Zoro, vow to fight, train, and kick your butt every single day.
So long as he doesn't get lost along the way.
You know where to find me.
I didn't. Thought I was headed back to the house.
Nami is a master thief with a love for money and valuables.
Don't forget your pillow.
She easily tires of Luffy and the crew's antics.
Feeling so piratey.
Yeah, well, you're gonna end up feeling watery if I have to throw you overboard.
And perfectly captures that distrusting side of her that was shown through the East Blue Saga before Arlong's defeat.
Nami, please. This is all we have. Arlong has bled us dry.
Then find more blood.
Usopp is our beloved liar that's captain of the Usopp Pirates.
I expect to hear all about the real adventures of Captain Usopp.
He's cowardly but will go to bat for his friends.
Done running.
I'm not leaving your side. Not until I know you're safe.
And will someday make sure he becomes a brave warrior of the sea. And Sanji is the girl-obsessed cook with a kind heart
I'm so hungry.
haven't got it, man. Have some nice corned beef fried rice, Sam.
That longs for the all blue.
I'm gonna find the all blue.
They also do an amazing job of incorporating the Zoro and Sanji rivalry we've come to love, or hate if you're a specific side of the internet.
Sounds like you don't know her very well either, bosshead.
They do turn down a bit of these traits. Usopp brings up concern over facing the Fishman, and is shown to be extremely nervous leading up to the fight, but he doesn't reach the extreme levels of cowardice he has in the anime and manga. Sanji's behavior around Nami and other women is greatly reduced. He's still a flirt, but for the most part he comes across as more playful than he does pervy and annoying.
Could be talked into offering some private lessons.
Nice try.
And Nami's shown to have more restraint with stealing valuables, as she puts back what she stole from Kaya after talking to her for a few minutes. Meanwhile, anime Nami has no qualms about charging her friends. Additionally, Nami is shown to be a much better fighter in this iteration. The biggest change comes with Luffy himself. He's far more aware of people's thoughts and feelings than he is in the anime. Where anime Luffy tends to be blunt and go off his gut, Netflix Luffy actually contends with their emotions and beliefs. He's no longer sleeping through backstories and even reacts and becomes enraged upon learning what happened with Nami, Arlong, and Belmarie. He questions and challenges others, like pushing for Koby to follow his dreams via conversation on good versus bad, and convincing Zoro to join the crew by discussing dreams and goals they both have.
You keep saying that, but is that all you are? Is that all you want?
Where anime Luffy was far more to the point. Luffy openly questions himself and nearly loses hope following his first loss to Arlong and Zoro's near death following the battle with Mihawk. Above all this though, the major change to befall Luffy is his altruism. Netflix Luffy doesn't really have any qualms with being a hero. While the Luffy we've known has never been one to sit on the sidelines when good people need help, Netflix Luffy puts his intentions right in the open and gives off a much more heroic vibe. I guess this Luffy doesn't mind sharing his meat. But even with these changes, the core cast still feels like the characters we know and love. While different, there was never a point where Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Usopp, or Sanji ever felt unrecognizable. They had their quirks, their goals, and their beliefs intact. And while they were definitely different takes on the characters, they were still the Straw Hat crew we've adventured with over the past 25 years. Honestly, my only complaint with Luffy really comes from the flashback where he eats the Gum Gum fruit. That innocent mistake made by manga Luffy feeling far more spiteful here. This being what I truly felt was the biggest departure from the Luffy I know. The way the crew is handled was one of my favorite aspects of the series. One Piece has always done a solid job of creating relationships between all the members of the crew, but I really liked how they handled them here. One of my favorite scenes of the whole season was at Barashie, when Nami and Zoro play their drinking game and bond over their pasts. There's nice moments we couldn't get in the manga either. With how manga Luffy is, it was cool seeing how Zoro really steps up as first mate to give Luffy the push he needs at the end of episode 7, where Luffy is still questioning if he could be captain and help Nami. We also just get little moments, like when Sanji steps in to shut up Buggy when he's antagonizing an already nervous Usopp before their fight with Arlong. None of these little moments breaks their characters. Sanji has always been there for Usopp when he starts doubting himself. Zoro's always been there to push Luffy when he's not living to his potential. But it's done in new ways that we haven't seen and only enriches that dynamic.
I, Roronoa Zoro, vow to stand by your side. You're my captain, Luffy. And I'm your first mate.
There's also some really cool dynamics and interactions we never got to see in the manga, or at least haven't seen yet. Like Nami befriending Kaya, Garp and Zeph having a sit down and reminiscing on the good old days, or even a scene between our two big One Piece verse legends, Buggy the Clown and Gody Usopp. There was one particular moment though that really stood out to me. When Zoro ends up injured following his battle with Mihawk, Nami actually blames Luffy for his injuries, since Luffy didn't force Zoro out of the fight.
Because you could have saved Zoro. He didn't have to fight Mihawk, but you let it happen. Why didn't you stop him?
I thought it was a really powerful moment, not just for Nami's character to show her actual love for the guys here, but a great moment for Luffy as well. The manga rarely has Luffy challenged like this, as outside his battle with Usopp at Water 7, most alterations between Luffy and the crew tend to be gags, or a situation out of their control, like Robin with CP9 and Sanji with Germa and the Big Mom Pirates. It was kind of cool seeing this dynamic between them, and it's something that really works best here at the beginning of the story, as Luffy would really have to do something fucked up to get a reaction like that at the current point in the manga. One character to really benefit from the live-action adaptation was none other than aspiring Marine hero Koby. I've never really had issues with Koby like a portion of the fandom does, but he's never really been a character that stuck out to me in the grand scope of the One Piece story. The live action, however, has really got me rooting for the guy. He's still our same Koby. He dreams of being a Marine and protecting people, he has confidence issues and is extremely timid, especially when placed next to Luffy and Garp. And despite his dream of being a Marine, he still has the ability to tell when Marines are doing wrong, and will stand against it.
No.
What did you say?
I said no, sir.
You do realize there are severe punishments for disobeying direct orders?
I disagree with those orders, sir.
One Piece live action takes Koby on a journey to become his own man and seize his own dreams, something that's further cemented by his final interaction with Luffy at the end of the season. In all honesty, had Koby played a role like this in the manga right from the start, I think a lot more people would be willing to accept the role he seems to be getting pushed into as the future of the Marines. If the live action continues, I do hope we'll get to see more of Koby, as I've truly become attached to this iteration of him.
Goodbye, Koby. Be a good Marine. Be a good pirate.
Garp's pursuit of Luffy was one of the major recurring elements that really helped tie all of the East Blue Saga together in a way the manga failed. In fairness, storytelling in the 90s versus the 2020s is very different, so I don't blame Oda for handling the story the way he did all the way back then. Original East Blue was very villain of the week, or villain of the next 3 months with One Piece pacing. Most adversaries Luffy faced showed up simply to be a challenge before the next island, and the Marines hardly held any presence beyond Shellstown until really Logtown, where we saw the Marines in their full glory and not just mousy. Having Garp play this recurring antagonist pursuing Luffy helps to loop the saga together and offer a final solution to the question live-action One Piece posed, whether or not Luffy was ready to be a captain on the Grand Line. That being said, while the chase offered some much-needed tension and a great role for Koby, I wasn't super in love what it did to Garp as a character. None of what was done broke who Garp is. He's the hero of the Marines, he battered Luffy as a kid for wanting to be a pirate, and continues to wish he'd hang up the straw hat and be a soldier. But seeing Garp come after Luffy as hard as he does feels out of place, especially when manga Garp usually bursts out laughing at headquarters whenever his colleagues inform him of Luffy's antics. It was also weird for this chase to have all just been a test to ensure Luffy was ready for the Grand Line. A part of this could be from my misreading of the character, but I've always interpreted Garp as being hands-off with Luffy, as he doesn't approve of Luffy being a pirate, but refuses to hunt down his own grandson. I always figured there was reason Garp and Luffy interacted very little during the present story, and it seems odd to not only have Garp run this chase, but also recognize Luffy as Roger's successor, particularly at this point in the story. As a longtime fan of the series, it was super cool seeing Garp make that connection, but I can't help but worry it'll hinder the series' future. As if that happens in the manga or anime, it'll be huge considering how many years of build-up we have to the moment. It was a pleasant surprise when Arlong showed up only 3 episodes in and was already on Luffy's trail. A major issue I had with the original telling of the East Blue saga was that we were constantly introduced to huge threat after huge threat, to the point where having Arlong be the big bad of the East Blue felt odd when we just had all this stuff about Krieg at Barashie. One Piece live action makes Arlong the clear head honcho. Other pirates pay tribute to him, the seas as a whole seem to fear him, they all seem to know exactly who he is, which adds an extra sense of danger to him. Live action Buggy nearly kills Luffy, and yet when Arlong comes to his door, Buggy's immediately terrified and desperate to survive. Arlong even puts Zeph on edge and manages to really knock Luffy down during the attack on Barashie. Much like with Crocodile in the original source, seeing Luffy come back and best Arlong at Arlong Park feels like a huge moment. Early One Piece was a very hard sell. I admitted it already, but I quit One Piece for a year following the Orangetown arc. A large part of this is that I just didn't feel the stories for Shellstown, Orangetown, or even Syrup Village were that compelling. Netflix alters that. I was immediately hooked by the first episode. I love the dynamic between Luffy and Nami during their team-up infiltration to steal the map from Morgan's fort.
Yeah, she's the best.
And seeing how Luffy, Nami, and Zoro all came together to fight off the Marines and Morgan made that fight sequence one of my favorites from the whole season. The way they ditched the whole Nami betrayal and Cage fiasco in Orangetown for a battle of ideals between Luffy and Buggy was far more compelling. And more dangerous. I'm currently watching Luffy take on an emperor in the anime, and yet I was still worried for him watching the water tank scene at the big top. Though we did miss this. It also helps a lot of things get set up before they happen. Kaya just giving Luffy and crew a ship felt super out of the blue and lucky as hell when it happened in the anime. Setting up Kaya to own the shipyard creates more reasoning for Luffy and his friends to get involved with Usopp and her in the first place. And the high-stakes battle at Kaya's mansion, with Nami and Usopp struggle to get Kaya to safety before Luffy and Zoro return to take on Kuro and the Meow Band siblings, felt far more thrilling than the battle on the beach ever did. As an added bonus, Kuro with 1,000 plans actually felt like a mastermind with 1,000 plans. Luffy and Ko so easily derailed him in the manga, I completely forgotten his whole thing was that he was a strategist. Watching him constantly outsmart Usopp, Koby, Zoro, and Luffy until the big battle was a nice touch, even if he still made some really dumb mistakes.
Dispose of the bodies outside of the house this time.
I love the One Piece series, but it may be one of the worst paced series I've ever followed in terms of the amount of fluff it has. Now, I'm not a complete hater of fluff. I actually believe that contrary to what many writers and editors tell you, having a bit of downtime fluff to break up events is a really good thing, so long as that fluff adds something to your world or characters. But One Piece has a lot of it, and One Piece live action proves a good deal didn't have to be there. We got to avoid the whole Luffy trapped underwater sequence at Arlong Park, and avoid some battles that weren't exactly needed, like Pearl, though all of Krieg's crew was essentially cut, which I wasn't super thrilled with, but that was sorta whatever. And also, I was happy to be away with the Luffy in a cage thing during the Buggy arc. That being said, not all of what was cut was fluff. It was bound to happen. We had 8 episodes to tell a story that spanned over 60. Because of that, some things had to be omitted. While a lot of it wasn't anything that was going to be missed, there was some that I personally wish would have made the cut. Something that really stood out at Barashie. As I just mentioned, having Krieg out of the picture was a really weird story choice to me. It meant that a number of things from the original story had to change. While Zeph still forgives Luffy's debt from his treasure tab, it feels sort of forced. Both threats to come to Zeph's doorstep were because of Luffy, with him and the crew only cleaning, or really even just failing to clean, their own messes. Luffy doesn't do anything all that extraordinary, which makes the whole Luffy-Roger parallel that Zeph makes feel all that more forced. I do have some bias here. Barashie was my favorite arc of the East Blue Saga. I personally found it more compelling than the Arlong Park one, and so it sorta sucked to see that arc get butchered in such a way. I feel a part of this too really hurt Sanji. Tez Skylar gave an amazing performance, and in no way do I think his portrayal was lacking, but I couldn't help but feel that Sanji as a character was the weakest link of the crew. A part of that came off the fact that I've always attributed 2 major relationships from the Barashie arc to be key to Sanji's start in the series, those relationships being Zeph and Gin. Reducing Gin to a small cameo destroyed the other side of Sanji, and while we still get to see his compassion, the way he treats Gin and the shared respect between them was what set Barashie so much higher than any other arc in this saga to me. I had also always felt it was Sanji's role in defense of Barashie, and the dynamic with Gin that was what earned him Zeph's final push to head to sea with Luffy. This made a lot of the Sanji and Zeph stuff feel a tad bit forced, and while it was maybe because I was expecting more, I felt the only thing that made me buy a lot of the Sanji, Luffy, and Zeph stuff was knowing the anime and manga well enough to fill in the blanks. Overall, Barashia was a cool location in the show that did a lot for the characters, but it butchered a large part of Sanji's story in place of making tension between Luffy and Nami, and pushing this sort of distress for Luffy of being a failed captain. Additionally, Hachi being cut also really has me curious about future arcs. I know thinking about Sabaody is really getting ahead, but seeing as Hachi plays a major role in the entire Paramount War saga, with his injury sparking the punch that gets the crew separated, it's weird to see him omitted completely. This also kills a great potential moment for Nami in the future, where we see her forgive Hachi for what happened with Arlong in the arc. There were a few others that were certainly missed, but probably didn't matter as much story-wise, like Django and of course the lurking legend Down the Stairs. Netflix's take on One Piece certainly wasn't perfect, but it's easily one of the best anime adaptations I've seen. And on its own, it's just an amazing and purely enjoyable show. It's the perfect example of a show that paves its own path forward, while keeping the same heart as its predecessor and source material. It's the story and the characters we love, but told in a way that feels fresh. I always knew how the season would end. Luffy would beat Arlong, free Nami and her village, and escape the Marines to head to the Grand Line. But there was enough fresh changes that watching the series made me wonder how Luffy and crew would pull off the victory in this situation. How Luffy would contend with Kuro in the manor, how Sanji and Zeph would help Zoro, and how Luffy would handle failure. When it comes to adaptation, Netflix's One Piece is the place to look for an adaptation done right.